Buongiorno a tutti ragazzi, bentornati su Punto, Luce, il podcast che parla di fotografia, di creatività, di storie, di vita, insomma di un po' di cose come sempre. Questa è la seconda puntata della seconda stagione, andatevi ad ascoltare la prima puntata se ve la siete persa. Vi ho già accennato infatti, proprio giovedì scorso, la settimana scorsa, che oggi avremmo avuto un ospite straordinario, Mast, un artista incredibile che vive in Colorado. Lui è un Amish e quindi lui mi ha chiesto se per favore l'intervista potesse essere registrata solamente in audio, non ci sarà video in questa puntata. E questo mi ha fatto pensare perché forse essendo un podcast dovrei finalmente decidermi a registrare solo audio. Non so perché ho come la sensazione di dover metterci anche il video ogni volta, ma forse sarà la prima di una serie di puntate che saranno solo audio. C'è una traccia video sopra le nostre voci, ci sono delle foto che scorrono, ci sono alcuni pezzi che fanno vedere il suo studio, alcuni pezzi video che fanno vedere il suo studio e soprattutto questa intervista è in inglese. Ci sono dei sottotitoli in italiano, li trovate su YouTube. Vediamo se riusciamo a creare anche un audio in italiano, però per adesso è complicato, è un audio molto lungo e l'AI fa fatica ancora con audio molto molto lunghi. Comunque, vi auguro una buona visione. D'ora in poi la voce partirà in inglese. La mia intervista con Mast in cima alle montagne del Colorado, a Westcliff, inizia adesso.
Oggi sono a Westcliff, una cittadina in cima alle montagne in Colorado e sono con Mast. Che onore, what an honor to be here in Westcliff, just on top of the mountain. Such a beautiful day today with you, which Maya introduced me to you. And I was like, when I looked at your website, I was like, wow, this is so beautiful. So thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. I'm excited to have you here, and welcome to Westcliff, Colorado. So
Yeah,
it's I'm excited to have people here from Italy, which I totally love Italy, and I hope to see it someday.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this just 5 seconds ago, but for sure you are invited to come. I will host you somehow for no problem. And I would love you to bring you to Florence or to Pisa or to Milan and see.
Oh, I'd love to see the art and sketch on location there someday.
Yes.
I just think any person who is involved in art full time or has any admiration or respect for old masters and just really fine art luxury would think of Italy. And so it's definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah, and it's funny because sometimes Italians take it for granted because, when you grow up with something that is always there, like it becomes something natural. So it's easy to see a lot of arts around you and then you go to another country and you realize, oh, that's not normal.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. It's, and I, being an artist, I have an eye for detail. So a lot of the little things stand out to me, like we're living in a pretty picturesque valley right here in Westcliff. And, in a sense, it's easy. You get used to it, but still for me, being an artist, I think of it every day. Every time I walk down Main Street and the majestic mountains in the background, it just takes your breath away.
Yeah, it's very inspiring. But I want to know more about who you are as a person before to become an artist. So who is Mast?
Sure. Well,
if you know who you are, because there's not, I don't know fully about myself.
Sure, so. Yeah. And for some people, it might be a lofty question, but I feel like I kind of know who I am and I understand I continue to evolve through the years as an adult as I keep doing what I do. However, I was born in an Amish community. I don't know if you've ever heard of Amish people, but I grew up on a farm. Amish people, no electricity, no vehicles, no automobiles. And we had indoor plumbing, but no electric heat. Everything was a wood stove. My mom cooked with hot water. We had an iron kettle. It was a special design kettle where you create the flame inside and then you still had indoor plumbing and you heated your water that way. So I grew up with a lot of hard work, um, lots of animals, crops, long days on the farm. So thereby, just lots of hard work and an appreciation for simple things. I didn't realize it at the time that I was growing up, but now as an adult, I totally see how that simple life has become a part of my identity, part of who I am. Um, in my career, I'm living a slightly more sophisticated life when it comes to technology and art shows and those types of things. But my raising definitely is who I am as a person. So I love simple things. Um, I, I I really enjoy meeting people from all over the world, people like yourself, because life is beautiful. I love life, uh, and everybody has their own story, and so it's very inspiring to me to meet people from around the world. And when you hear mainstream propaganda, um, it's quite a contrast to, it's just the propaganda is so far removed from real lives and meeting one on one like we're doing right now. And so I love, although I'm shy, I love meeting people. One on one, I'm in my element. And I like history. I like to learn about different parts of the world, Italy. I like cultures. And I'm a person who loves life, and I love so many different aspects of life. Cultures, ranching, farming is how I grew up, living in the American West here. I love it here. And then, of course, I love art,
Yeah.
And I'm I'm very interested in stories, and I think stories are a very important part of life, and they are what create communities. When you have genuine community and all these interactions, all these beautiful stories are being created, and then even further down the road, I feel that memories complete that experience.
Man, I just now understood why I am here. I mean, I totally agree with what you said. Like, I really feel like that today we're going way too quick, way too superficial, and way too concentrated on wrong things. And people are at the center of my life as well. This is what I love as well. And this is also what I do as a photographer. I like to photograph people because of that, because of the relationship that you can build with them,
Right.
and discover the stories and how amazing people are, and how can, sometimes, I don't know if it's the same for you, but when I take a picture of somebody, people thinks that I'm gonna give them something taking a picture, but 99.9% of the time, they are the ones that are giving something to me back, which is much more precious that the picture itself that they got at the
end. And in my industry that I work in, obviously it's for beauty and aesthetics and those things, but far beyond that, it gives them something tangible to the story. Or we see all these different images, but for me, they come from the heart. And so when people get to know even a glimpse of the story, the art is something they get to take home with them in a tangible form, but it connects them to something more. And so I am very shy in crowds. I've had to, coming off the farm, it's quite a contrast. So I'm a work in progress. One-on-one, I'm fine, and I love people, but my career has taken me to places, with lots of people, and I've spoken to lots of people. And so it's definitely a learning curve for me, but I really have a sincere interest in others and in what their life is like and what their story is.
Yeah, and like looking at your art because it's in front of me because we are in your gallery, so it's just all over the place, it's all around me, and it's just beautiful. But and you said also that before, you say that you pay attention to details. I can definitely tell your art is very detailed, and I think that brings value to people as well. Because when I just correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess that the attention and the details that you put in your art is also is something that you have. It's in your eyes.
Absolutely. I'm very, very much detail oriented. And so I've always been, because, and especially out here in the West, we're a more arid climate. So there's, small details such as water. Water makes a huge difference between life and death. Water can drown you, but water gives you life. And so same way with a single spark. We need heat in our houses, but it can also burn your house down. And so that's just a small detail, and I think, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And so I do not ignore the details, because it's because of the details we have beauty. Details create texture in our lives. They create texture in my artwork. We are made of details. Our stories are made of details. And so that's why small and simple things are very, very significant for me personally, and it's just in the way that I see life is in small details. And so I feel like small details make big differences.
Right.
And small details so often go unnoticed, but that doesn't make them less important.
Thanks for saying that, because totally agree with that. Yeah. But how did you switched or transitioned, or how did you find out about art, like being an Amish, grown up in an Amish community?
Yeah.
And what happened? Like, how did you become an artist? You always have been, or?
Yeah. So my mother says before I could walk, I was attracted to pencil and paper. I started doodling before I could walk. She said I never played with toys. I was just always pencil and paper is what I wanted. So for me, it wasn't like waking up one day and saying, "Oh, I think I'm gonna try to be an artist." For me, it was just always who I was. So it wasn't that much of a discovery. Although I would say I was probably in about 6th grade is when I had this stronger sense of a real sense of knowing that this is what I was going to do with my life. And it was a strong calling. So strong, it was more than just a choice. It was a strong sense of knowing. And for me, I just never let go of that. And so it was not an easy road, because Amish people, we practice a more homesteading culture. I mean, obviously, we're different now than we were 100 years ago, but we still have elements of that homesteading culture, and thereby, hard work, art was not a thing really. There's very artistic people, but they work more in blacksmithing or fine furniture, crafts, beautiful. They build beautiful homes and things like that. But some people that I've known, but fine art was just not in our vocabulary. And so for me, growing up through my teens, I went through a very hard time I just craved a mentor. I yearned for instruction so much. I was just doing it, but nobody of any artistic merit could tell me that I was doing something wrong or if I was doing something right. And so I was just kind of wallowing through, say, from 14 through 18, I was just kind of lost as to where to take my art or to improve my art. And so when I did not have those connections, the only thing that was left to do was just get back to the drawing board. I knew I wasn't going to get better if I didn't do it. So it was just, I just stuck to the drawing board and kept doing it and kept doing it.
Is there a moment where in your life when you realized, I mean, you started to realize that you could call yourself an artist? I mean, I tell you my perspective on my art. I struggle so much to call myself an artist, and I teach myself to call myself an artist. You know, it's like
I went through that exact same thing. I would say I was probably, it was only until probably about maybe 5-6 years ago that I actually kind of learned that it was okay to call myself an artist, because for the longest time, even after I was doing it full time, I just did not feel qualified. I just did not feel confident, or I did not feel legitimate to actually call myself an artist. An artist, I thought, was somebody like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci or some of my heroes, and I was nowhere near that, in my eyes. But it's I finally realized, it's okay. And it's just like, there's carpenters, there's mechanics, there's all these other industries, titles, and being an artist was just in the industry that I'm in and the living that I'm making and the profession that I'm in. So I've kind of gotten used to it more, but it was a long learning curve for me.
Yeah. Can I ask you, how old are you?
I am 34.
So I get it.
I'm on the backside of 34. I'll be 35 in March.
Man, yeah, because like coming from your culture, from the Amish community, to who doesn't contemplate the figure of an artist, that's what I'm learning.
Yeah,
so call yourself an artist.
For sure. It was a stretch. Yeah. It was a pretty good stretch.
But I'm proud of you, because you now call yourself an artist, so you made it.
So it's I grew up pretty well isolated, so socially, I lived off the land. I knew the people in our church and our family, large family and so forth. So beyond that, I was pretty clueless and pretty naive, I guess you could say, even. So, but it's stepping out into this has made me, more aware, has made me a stronger person, I feel like. And I've seen a broader perspective of the entire universe and the world, different cultures, not just in a bubble, and that's a very beautiful thing. I love life.
And you still can call yourself an Amish.
Yeah, I'm still very much part of the Amish community.
Yeah.
In Westcliff, Colorado here, they're very supportive of my career. And so that's a huge blessing, and I love it. They're very supportive, and it's a new thing. It's a new thing for our people, but it's being well received.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You talked already about being a child and already drawing here and there, but is there a why? Like, what's drawing is for you? Why you draw?
I that's a great question, because I often challenge myself with the why.
Oh yeah,
and,
I get it
fully. we should never forget our why. But for me, initially, my first 17 years of my life, drawing was something that I just loved to do. It was something that it had to come out. Because I did not have the access to artistic, professionals or endeavors that much where I grew up. Like, I was isolated from libraries and museums and those types of things, but it had to come out. I realize now, as a kid growing up, that's why I was always doodling. I was always coloring or drawing or all those things. And it was something that just really developed into a passion. And it was very therapeutic. I would not have recognized it as a teenager that much, but looking back now, I understand I had to do it. It has to come out of you. And I once read a quote where somebody said, passion is something that you have to do. It would feel as though you would die if you couldn't do it. Taking it to the extreme, I would still survive, but I think my spirit would suffer if I couldn't create, and so I think I feel a very strong purpose to art. I would say that purpose really changed for me, other than just enjoyment and passion, when I had my accident when I was 17 years old. And that totally changed I would say that totally changed my why.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. What happened?
So growing up on the farm, we had lots of horses. And so it was on a very cold day, January of 2009. So cold, we were going to work inside. But my dad said, before we get started, just go turn out our 2-year-old into the paddock for exercise. He was a 2-year-old Percheron. And so I went out to do this errand, and about 20 minutes later, my dad found me unconscious out in the barnyard. I don't recall what happened. No one was around to see what happened, but there was a damaged gate, and the horse was standing right beside me with his head hanging over my body as if in remorse. So total mystery, absolute mystery, but I had a brain injury. Didn't wake up for 48 hours. And so I don't even remember how long I was in the hospital, but it was a long road to recovery. It was about 5 years before I was strong again and could have started to socialize and even start working. So it was from 17 to 22 is just a really, really a chunk of darkness for me in my past. And so how that absolutely impacted my art. Even my parents, even in not being art experts, but they even look back and see now that had it not been for my own art, I may not be here, because that was, as I was able, I totally threw myself into my art. That's the only thing that still gave me purpose during those times, severe depression. So,
wow,
I would say it was only until I experienced the darkness did I understand the importance of the light. And that totally, not only mentally, intellectually, but I would say visually impacted my art. Because I suddenly kind of realized how, well, it's only if you have a little bit of darkness, that's only when you notice the light. Mm-hmm. If you have no darkness, you really have nothing, and so like the piece behind me, it's a very dark piece, but if you notice all the sensitivities to the light, it's even the dim light really brings a lot of hope in that piece and really brings that piece to life. So I would say my why is during my dark time, as I was able, I would see books, magazines, and other people's art is really what fueled me and continued to bring me hope and meaning to my life, even if I was in a very disabled state. So it really showed me what I wanted to do with my art.
You could draw still at the time.
I could, but much of those 5 years I was too weak to even draw. I was very, very weak and very incapacitated. So as I was able, I would. If I could keep that pencil moving, I was doing okay. But when I was too weak to even draw, that's when it got really dark for me. and my parents recognized that. So so my art, more than just enjoying art now, more than just even being a passion right now, my art really feels like a mission and a ministry, and bringing hope to the world, and uh, making the world a better place. If I can bring one moment of happiness or joy or hope to somebody who's struggling in their life, um, that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm here to do. And it's um, that's that's what I feel like what my art's for.
Yeah. My God, this is so. I just tell you this. My claim, like my slogan for as a photographer is I'm called myself the photographer of joy, because
nice.
this is
Nice.
what I would love to do. Like find joy, bring joy to the people, even when they don't see it. It's like sometimes people comes in front of my camera and they think, uh, like, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not good enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not this enough and that enough.
Mm-hmm.
But then my mission is just to show them how joyful and beautiful they can be, even when they think it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love what you said about light and darkness, because I totally agree with that. Like, um, you can only see light. The light shape itself in the darkness. Mm-hmm. So whenever there is darkness, you switch on a tiny little light, and it seems to be like so big, and you can see details in the darkness that maybe you would not notice when everything is light up. Right. So right. I totally agree with that. And can you tell everybody the title of the painting behind you?
The piece I was referencing and referring to was called A Long Day.
Yeah.
And that piece is probably my most popular piece to date, because that piece was a year and a half in the making during those 5 years. And it really represents my chapter in life at that time. I think the reason I was drawn to that piece is because of all the darkness which I was living at the moment. And then it's just the soft light, very soft, very kind of almost illuminative. The dim light ray on the top, I just put that there on my own, and it very much matched my own dim ray of hope at that time. And I had to dig deep. I had to dig very deep to pull that one off, to even have the physical strength to draw. I would go for days up into my makeshift studio upstairs and try to work on it, only to collapse into the chair in defeat. And it was hard. It was very hard and very dark. And that's the only thing that I had to hang on was God's word, and I had to get better to be an artist. I just felt such a strong mission to that I had to get better so I could be an artist. Yeah. Like I was designed to be, is what it felt like.
Yeah. And how did you, like, what kind of role your faith has in your heart? Like, can you, I don't know, like for me, when I take pictures of somebody, there are always moments where I can totally see God, like being there, doing something for me and for them as well. So
sure, I absolutely agree with that. I just feel like I see God everywhere. I feel like I want him in my work. I hope my work, even in the smallest way, reflects his creation, his goodness, his beauty. I really feel like, sometimes I feel like, a vessel, in which I desire to be a vessel in which he can work with, and sometimes I've had drawings of where I was going, and it almost seemed like the drawing just drew itself. Everything just fell into place, and so very much I strive to keep God in my work. I feel God is reflected in light. I feel God is reflected in beauty. I strive to keep a strong connection, and I hope that even in the smallest forms, may people feel that in my work. So yeah, I you know I feel like through His grace I was able to recover, and I I want to draw for His kingdom.
Wow.
I want to draw for His kingdom, and I
What a statement. I love it.
even for I've mentioned in the past, even for people who are, whether they're believers or non-believers, if some of my images can only get them to turn their head, just turn their head towards the light, not in any narrative or in any way, but if they can just cause them to pause and turn their head to the light and just stand there for a moment and hopefully draw themselves to their, remind them of God or remind them of their own inner quietness, because we're just in such a fast-paced modern world, and so obviously a lot of my pieces are idealized, they're in ideal situations on farms and ranches and in the West here, but it really is all about the light, and God is light.
Yeah,
you know
I love that. Um, so I want to go a little bit more technical because I don't know much, and so I want to know a little
Sure.
bit better how, like what kind of tools you use, how you make a piece of work of yours become finalized. I don't know how to say, and yeah, how long it takes. Also, I know that you draw on a very specific kind of paper because I've been reading about that, but I want to know some more details about that.
Sure. Yeah. So most of my works that you see in here are through personal encounter. They're people I know, places I've been, or places I've seen. So it often starts with just everyday life, So I usually go to brandings or when I'm hiking in the mountains or however it may be in a very ordinary day. I'll take a picture and document something. So I do use references, but oftentimes my work ends up completely different than the reference. I might reference a certain character, a certain animal, or a certain location, and then I use artistic liberty to incorporate other things into it. So a lot of my artwork turns out to be my own, not just a replica of a documented photo. So it starts with that, and then I start laying it on paper. I use Bristol vellum. I really like this kind of velvety texture to it because you can kind of go either way with it. You can get really tight and smooth with it, or you can get a little rougher and loose with it as well. Some papers are very, very textured to where it would be hard to get tight if you so desired. So Bristol vellum is the one I've discovered and that I've kind of stuck to. I also have worked on clayboard before, which is something I want to explore even more in the future. And then I kind of developed my own technique because I never had an instructor. I read books as I was able, which were helpful, but I spend a lot of time with my work. I think a lot about the subjects while I'm drawing them. And so I'm kind of like reliving those moments and just kind of, it almost feels like, breathing in one with the work and almost like living with the work and bringing life to the work. And so I use many, many, many layers of graphite. I used Kimberly pencils, which recently I'm branching more into charcoal as well. So these Kimberly pencils, uh, there's some hard and soft leads. So I start in with the hard leads, which are lighter. And then as I get deeper into the tones and values, I use the softer leads. So the piece behind me, A Long Day, probably has 20 to 30 layers of graphite on it. So I really take it to the max, because most artists will know if you're not careful with pencil on paper, you can burnish the paper to where it gets shiny and it doesn't accept pencil anymore. So I really kind of play that fine line there. And so the deepest tones, I've really kind of taken it to the max as to pressure, layers, and I've really taken, so I kind of am really balancing that fine line between burnishing the paper, accepting the lead, and all those types of things. So I use the blending tertullians. I use those quite a bit to get smooth effects where I want them to be. And I use a kneaded eraser. This has been a game changer for me. So, and growing up in Amish community, I had never heard of a kneaded eraser. So when I found these were a real game changer. And so it's kind of, that's another thing why I like my medium. It's very simple. All my tools fit in a Ziploc. I grew up very simple. My greatest investment is time, you know. And so my work goes with me wherever I go, pencils and paper. That's all I need. And so it's pretty straightforward when it comes to the technical side. It's just creating art. It's very important, I feel, to understand what you're seeing. Teaching yourself how to see things. We see beautiful trees, horses, but it really also comes down to light versus shadow, and shapes and outlines. And if you can break it down in your mind, that kind of simplifies the process.
It's impressive how much you can do with simple things. That's what I try to tell my students when I teach photography. It's like people nowadays, they just freaks out with all the tools and get a better camera, get a better lens, get a better everything. But I don't think that's the right way. I mean, that of course, when you got it, you can go wherever you want. But photography is exactly the same, That's why I love black and white, because you just look at light and shadows and shapes and lines. And then when you can teach yourself to use those things with whatever tools you have, it doesn't need to be a fancy camera. It can be, I'm now going back to film cameras, because it forced me to stop, to think, to look at details, to look at the light and the shadow, and not be so fast. We're so used to phones and digital cameras. They're like click, 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 click. You take under pictures and then you scroll through those under pictures, looking for the right one. But the right one, it should be at the very beginning. You first think, look, examine it, look at details, and then you click the button, and you have already the right one. It's like, so I really feel like film camera is very similar to what you do. It's like it's a simple tool, but it makes you can do a lot with simple tools. It's like and like having 30 layers of graphite on a piece of paper is just mind blowing to me, because it's like literally you have to think and imagine, like preview what you want to have at the very end, and like and go with it. And I love what you said about time, because people don't value time enough nowadays in art. Everybody wants to have it right now, right there, but art, whatever it is, it takes time to learn it, to do it, to make it. And also, in order for you to take out something out of it, it's like, it's important. You have to take time.
You have to put something into it in order to receive something, And so I feel, in America, there's more pencil artists now than there were 10 years ago, and there's a lot of good ones out there. But I feel like one thing that sets my work apart is that extra time. It's because when I build up layers, I kind of saturate the paper. And so often when you do a looser, more quicker sketch, you still will have the white of the paper shining through there. And whereas it's kind of like there's a reason why oil painters, most of them have underpaintings. They saturate that canvas. They have an underpainting and it creates layers, and it's through layers you create depth. And so there's not a lot of nice renderings out there in pencil art, but I'm talking about life. I want my art to have life in it. And I want it to emerge from the paper. I want, you can almost hear the girl, you can almost smell the chicken coop. Even somebody once said a good pencil artist is somebody who, when everything is right, you see the color, even if it's not there. When you have a good piece of pencil art, yes, you know firsthand it's pencil, but when you get all the values and the light and all the elements, you're there just the same. I mean, like you feel it. Color doesn't matter. And so I feel like another thing that I really like about black and white is it's the certain raw reality. It's there's no distraction of color.
Yeah.
And there can be some less than ideal paintings in my mind that you can be convinced in, oh, that's great. But it's the beautiful color that's drawing you in.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it may be done very poorly. And if it was in black and white, it actually would fall apart, because composition and detail and light. And, well, as a photographer, all the things.
Of course.
Yeah. So I just feel very, I just get goosebumps and I get so excited talking about a simple pencil because there is so much to learn about the simple pencil. And I feel like even the great masters, like John Coleman is an American master, Western artist who has done some incredible Native American portraits in charcoal. Michelangelo, Da Vinci, all those historical and contemporary renderings of pencil masterpieces, I still feel like we've only scratched the surface of pencil.
Wow. I'm sorry, but this is so interesting. So
no worries.
This is gonna be we're gonna go towards the end, but it's like for you, paper. I'm just realizing this now, but tell me if I'm right or wrong. But paper is light, so to you preview the light. Like if you want white, you have to leave the paper free. Right?
You're absolutely correct. Yes. Yeah, so all the highlights, like the cowboy hat where the light's hitting the eye, and all those are premeditated. And so in this case, it's just as important where you don't go as where you go with the pencil. So all of that is reserved. So it's another step in advance, whereas in oil painting, most of the time the highlights come in
later
last. Well, this is in advance. So you have to know your highlights in order to not go there.
It's like a negative kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So all the girl with the chickens, the highlights on the chickens and the bonnet and the dress, that's the white paper shining through.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I'm going to ask you the last question.
Sure.
How do you think your voice can evolve, as an artist in time? Do you think you found your voice, and if you did, do you think it will ever change, or can you? I don't know. Do you imagine how it's gonna change?
Sure, I definitely imagine I will keep evolving. I'm a different artist now than I was 10 years ago, and I grew up around horses, so I love horses and I love horse training. I love veterinary work. There's so many things in life I love. But one of my horse training heroes once said that his philosophy in horse training was, if you can't change, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't be your best. So most of my career, I've always applied that. So meanwhile, I think any artist, you can't hide your style. You can't hide who you are, because if it's heart to paper, you can't hide. However, there are different pathways, I believe, or directions your art can take. So, 20 years ago, I was infatuated with horses. That's all I knew. I drew lots of horses. At that time, it would have been hard for me to imagine beyond a horse. Um, Whereas now, the broader my experiences, the more I love creation, the more things I love. I love anything from, beautiful architecture to horses and cowboys to ranch life down to the tiniest little beautiful sagebrush out in the desert. So it's this vast appreciation that I have. So meanwhile, I think I'll probably always have that certain recognizable flair, maybe, but I am totally open as to what the next 10 years have for me. It's, maybe a main street in Florence, who knows? I love so much of all the things that life has to offer in the different cultures, the different landscapes, all those things. So yes, I definitely, I think that's one of the greatest disasters if an artist would get pigeonholed into just a certain thing. Meanwhile, there's many Western artists who they've only known cowboy life, which is great. But if you're a real good artist, you will still find fresh ways, fresh compositions, you'll continue to grow within your own realm, even in those certain situations. So I don't have any predictions how that's going to be. But as much as I've grown in the last 10 years, I can't help but be excited what the next 10 years have to offer, and whatever direction that takes. So I definitely, that's one thing I strive to be mindful of, is to stay fresh, to stay energized, and not get pigeonholed. And because I feel like we limit ourselves. If we create boundaries, we're going to eliminate ourselves from greater opportunities. So for me, whatever life throws my way, if it's the way the sun hits a cathedral, or if there's a dove sitting on a steeple, or I notice all those tiny things. But at this time, I'm primarily Western, but they are subjects that I know.
Yeah. I love that you're not afraid of change. So it's beautiful. And I mean, your life tells that very clearly, like literally who you was as a kid and who you are right now just speaks like loudly about change. So,
change is hard, it is, there's no question, because I've struggled a lot in finding out who I was and the culture I was raised in. Art, there was nobody I could look up to that I knew personally within our circles that said, go for it, you can do this, it can be done. I simply had to blaze my own trail, and kind of, I didn't talk about it a lot within our culture, probably mostly to protect myself, because I didn't want to be so eccentrically different, but I had an inner drive, and I kind of demonstrated to our communities by doing it, not in
testifying.
Yeah, and just doing it. And when they saw it happening, I'm very blessed in how well it was received.
Yeah, which is not for granted.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. I mean, I will have like 1,000 questions, so I probably will come back in a year or something for a second
absolutely.
episode.
Absolutely.
Because you're a very interesting person, beautiful artist, and just amazed on what you do and how you made it. So it's just very unique.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, because I know that your time is important for you. So
it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
And just so you know, we just almost 1 hour talking. Yeah, that's how it goes. And it's
for real.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
that was
thank you
beautiful.
for your time.
Oh no, I mean, thank you so much, Andy. So, yeah, that's it. So we see you next year.
Yeah,
eventually.
I look
I don't
forward to
know.
next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.